Business leaders know the future is already here. The economy is shifting. Non-humans are entering the workforce. Nothing feels certain. SHRM understands those evolving challenges, both in the workplace and the wider world. In this podcast, we'll bring together authors, researchers, executives, and non-traditional experts to help you take on the challenges others haven't yet considered. Because you don't need to be a futurist, you need actionable insights now. You need to be a Tomorrowist. I'm Jerry Wan. Welcome to Tomorrowist, where we explore the trends shaping the future of work. AI is evolving at lightning speed, and with it comes a looming question. Will technology enhance the human workforce or replace it? New SHRM research reveals that 19.2 million U.S. jobs face high automation displacement risk. As headlines warn of mass displacement, how can leaders design AI strategies that prioritize people, not just productivity? Today, we're joined by somebody at the forefront of answering that question. Beena Ammanath is the global head of Deloitte AI Institute, an award-winning author, and a global thought leader on ethical AI. Beena, welcome to Tomorrowist.
Thank you so much for having me, Jerry. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
You know, we can't go a day or maybe even half a day without hearing about AI, and there's obviously good things about how it's helping us become more productive, creative, and find new ways to, advance our business and other agendas. But also there are other parts of it. We hear about, even as recently as this weekend, a major technology company announcing that due to AI or with the advancement of AI, that they are going to shift their labor focus, meaning they're going to decrease their labor force or change where they hire. And so people are having mixed feelings about AI. There are people that are obviously very excited about it, and it's making our work and our lives a little bit easier. But there are, naturally and understandably, folks and organizations who are worried about it. And so, in your view and your research, and you've written books on this, and you are the forefront leader on this, why has AI sparked such deep anxiety around worker displacement, particularly compared to past waves of other technology or technological automation?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to think about it, Jerry, is little back at the history, right? The first industrial revolution was a lot about looking at, making physical labor easier, where you didn't have to use just pure physical strength from humans to get work done. That led to a whole different way of working. And there was jobs displaced, but it also created a lot of new jobs, and completely new products, right? Like, I don't think jet engines would have been invented if pre-industrial era. So we have now looked, with AI, we are looking more at that human intellectual layer, or the brain part of our body, humanness, that is getting additional strengths, getting augmented. And that's why there is fear, because we are in this time of uncertainty. There's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of headlines, and not everybody understands AI. So there is that fear of jobs getting displaced, which is real and which is going to happen, but it's also going to create new jobs. And I think the opportunity for our generation, Jerry, is to define those new opportunities proactively. And I think you do a lot of that with your podcast right here.
How do we define this balance between being human centered and leveraging AI for what we know it can be? Whether it's, obviously we know and we've heard about the saving time and doing things faster, and now with the evolving conversations around AI agents, technology, AI actually doing our jobs and thinking. And why is it important to make sure that we never ignore the human impact of the AI and making it a human centric conversation? And every time we talk about AI,
Let me start with a very simple example. Yeah, and this is something I actually faced in my career early on, when I was looking at building AI models, machine learning models, to look at X-rays, and
Mm.
you come up with what the prediction would be based on the X-rays. And the idea from a data scientist perspective was, we're making their jobs faster, right? We're making it easier for them to do more X-rays. You're making them more productive, right? And that, I'm a technologist by training, so I was looking at solving it purely from a technology perspective. But from an X-ray machine operator's perspective, in their head, they're thinking, okay, AI is going to free up 50% of my time. But it's not like humans are going to suddenly start breaking more bones and my queue is going to get filled. What exactly am I supposed to do in that 50% of freed up time, right? I'm certainly guilty of it, but many leaders, brush something like this under the fact that AI is going to make your job faster, easier, but not go to that next level of what is this new role going to look like? What are they supposed to do with the freed up time? Or does everybody's job, do we just go from 8-hour days to 4-hour days and, your salary gets cut in half? That's just not going to work, right? So you really need to be able to look at that next level of depth of the human impact. And that only works if you start with what's the problem you're going to solve for? What are the effects of it? What's the impact to the workforce? And how do you address it proactively? In this extra example, really, in addition to building this, 100% accurate algorithm, it would help to have the team also focus on what is this human worker supposed to do in the freed up time instead of just saying you have freed up time, which is what a lot of leaders have been doing. And I think that conversation needs to shift a little bit.
Yeah, there's conversations about time, but as you mentioned too, there's also conversations about sort of what do we do with the savings, right? And I'm using savings as a very broad term, if in this, X-ray technician example, it costs half the amount of time, does that mean that the company pockets that difference, or is there some compensation going to the worker? How do you reinvest that to make sure that there's more technology? And so it's a really interesting thing, and I love the fact that you're reminding all of us to keep that at the forefront, because while organizational leaders are tasked with thinking about and making decisions for what's good for the organization and the future, employees are naturally, as human beings as we are, thinking about how does this impact me? And then there's anecdotal stories that we hear from our friends and our neighbors and things that we see on the internet of, hey, am I training this AI to replace me one day? Am I, going to this conference to learn about something that's going to, help me not be here next year? And so it's this delicate balance that I think people are excited about the advancements that AI is bringing to our daily jobs to eliminate some of the mundane, as you mentioned in the X-ray example, to make us more accurate without, with eliminating the human bias in some of these things. And so what are organizations doing right? And then what are some things that we can all learn from on things that they're not doing so well?
Yeah, and look, we're living in this transitionary time, right? There's a lot of change happening, and there's a lot of existing skill set that might get replaced or changed, modified. But there's also new skill sets that needs to come to the forefront. Sticking to that X-ray example, right? There's only so much that a data science or AI team can do to or automate the process or speed up the process. You need, at the end of the day, to get the next advanced level, you need deep domain expertise, right? You need the doctors, the medical background, the X-ray machine operators, domain knowledge, subject matter expertise. So I think the easiest thing any organization can do, sticking to this example, is provide that base level AI fluency training. And that's really what I'm seeing as well. Many organizations now beginning to do is provide AI fluency training, AI literacy training to all of their employees. At the end of the day, AI is only successful in your organization if there is adoption. And to drive adoption, you have to address the fear. And honestly, the more you drive that AI literacy, you're going to get more ideas, more new product and solutions that come from the people who are doing their jobs today. They once they understand what deep learning means or what is an AI agent, they're the ones who can come out, start thinking about the ideas of parts of the job that can be improved or done better, or can lead to saving and can help define what the next iteration of their role could look like. There's so much complexity to this topic, Jerry. But I think if we just are mindful and thoughtful, there is proactive steps that can be taken, and many companies are starting with these AI literacy trainings.
On that, and this is a great segue. So, for leaders who want to do it right, and again, this is such an evolving conversation. Maybe by the time our audience is listening to this or watching this, the technology is different or the times have changed. But what are some of the mainstay characteristics of a trustworthy AI system that that withstand the test of time or the evolving technology to make sure that we can prioritize what's good for the worker and what's good for the company?
Yeah, the reality is the technology is evolving. So we're trying to keep up pace with a rapidly changing technology. There's massive investments going into building the basics of AI, right? AI as a technology is still not mature. It's still very, very early days. So I think when I think about trustworthy AI, I'm really thinking about it as the side effects of the technology. Yes, you can drive more savings, you can get more ROI, you can generate new revenue opportunities, but it comes with side effects, whether it is an impact to the workforce or new compliance violations, or the need for transparency, how to address for bias in these algorithms. There are multiple side effects that come with using this technology in an enterprise environment. So I think when you think holistically about the technology and its implementation, it's very important to set aside time to actually think through those side effects. Today, we focus very much on savings and ROI, and it is impossible to think about all possible side effects. But at least you can get a good start and addressing 75% of the things that you might discover once the technology is rolled out. So, I think it's more of a process change. Whatever project management tool you're using or program management tool you're using, setting aside a percentage of time, and you have the smartest people in your company who are brainstorming on this new AI product idea. Also think about, what is this AI product once it's rolled out, once it's massively successful? What are the negative impacts? What are the side effects that it could lead to? So that these really brilliant people who are building AI are also thinking about the ways that it could go wrong and address it as part of the development process. And that's the missing step. We chase after the shiny object, we chase after the cool new technology without taking a pause and taking that responsibility of also thinking about the impact that it could have when it's rolled out.
So, when we talk about sort of the impact on the business, oftentimes when we think about AI, as you mentioned, the priority is on where the savings are, where the efficiencies are. And so basically, what are the tools and the data that they can help us sort of progress things? What's being overlooked in that conversation about building the human infrastructure needing to support augmented work? Again, using the X-ray example, we're focused always on how much time can we save, what can we have that person do in their free time, or what are the savings that can be had from maybe not having that person work full time. But the human infrastructure needed to support that, are there some additional things that have to be added to the equation in addition to the things that we are going to be saving?
Yeah, I think the human infrastructure is absolutely crucial. I know we went through a frenzy a few years ago of, and you probably remember an article called Data Scientist is the sexiest job of the century. We went through a frenzy of, hiring data scientists. But I think over time, what we've realized is also this need for domain experts, the need for, if you're building, say, a medical product, having a doctor or a nurse or trained medical professional at the table is super important. You're building a product for HR. It's not just going to be a bunch of data scientists. You have to get in trained HR professionals as part of the product team. So, with this need for domain experts and subject matter experts is a crucial part of the infrastructure as companies advance in their AI journey. Yes, at the beginning, it's relatively low hanging fruit, and you can automate bits and pieces. But to really take AI to the next level, to come up with the next idea, I think you need those domain experts at the seat, at the table, to not only think about the product itself, but also the ways it could go wrong and the side effects it could have. So there's a lot around, we can talk about upskilling, reskilling existing workforce. It all boils down to having that basic AI literacy to your existing workforce. The second thing I would point out, which we've not talked about, is, really proactively thinking about what are the new jobs for your industry. We know there will be new jobs that created. These AI systems are not just going to, self-maintain or, keep self-creating for your specific organization. So what are these new jobs? I think that effort needs to be put into defining these new roles And not just as a job description, but thinking through what does the career pathway look like for this specific role? Really going deep into thinking about what are the steps to get to that next level, what are the goals, what are success metrics. I think that body of work needs to be done. Many companies are beginning to think about it, but it's still very early days.
AI is also a very subjective topic, meaning that it impacts different industries and different organizations in ways that are both unique to what that company does, but also across different pillars of industry and size. We're seeing already the impact of AI again from a headline grabbing perspective. Over the weekend, a large technology company announced that because of AI, they're looking at downsizing their workforce. And again, depending on when you're listening to this conversation, that could be a number of different companies. Are there specific industries that are inherently better suited for human AI collaboration? We're seeing it across the board right now, more so in the technology companies. And even, a few weeks ago, Spotify, the music company, said, hey, you need to use AI in your roles, or, like it's being infused into all of that. Will all industries be impacted at the same rate and at the same, in the same ways? Or are there specific industries that should be more focused on bringing in that human AI collaboration sooner because of the impact that the technology will have?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to unpack here. One is AI as a whole, right? We're seeing most traction in financial services and life science and healthcare because they have been traditionally data-rich organizations, right? So there is easily available, accessible data, so it is much easier to build the algorithm. So there is, that's where you're seeing a lot of advances in AI, just because the foundation exists. But then there's also the other part to consider on the human aspect, which Jerry, you mentioned, is, I don't think there's going to be many roles that are not going to be impacted by AI in an enterprise. And this is my advice to anybody, right? It's not AI taking over your job. It's going to be somebody who knows AI that will take over your job, no matter whether you are fresh out of college and starting a new job, or whether you're the CEO or board member. You're going to be using AI tools in your role. So the person who uses AI tools effectively for their current role is going to be the one that's promoted, is going to be the one that's recognized, just because they're using the latest tools. So, in an organizational construct, it is absolutely crucial for everyone to not only understand the basics of AI, but proactively start learning about the tools that's relevant in your organization. What do I mean by that? Say if you're an accountant working for a CFO, yeah, it is important for you to not only understand the basics of AI, but understand what are some of the AI tools that's used in the finance domain for accountant. What are other accountants using? What AI products exist for AI accountants for accountants that can help them do their jobs faster? So it's
Mm.
like, when we started Excel, right? If you are still using manual paper and pen compared to somebody using Excel and its formulas to do their jobs faster, I think that's the transition that needs to happen. There is work to be done. There is no single playbook or handbook. A lot of it also comes down to the workforce to proactively learn and ask for their employers if they need that training. But at the end of the day, this transition period means you need to learn these new tools. The reality is that AI is not going away, right? It's existed since 1956, but we are now seeing real impact. So whether you adopt that Excel or whether you continue with your paper and pen, there is going to be a decision that you're going to make, and that's going to impact your career in the future. From an employer perspective, it is important to provide training on the AI tools. It's important to provide training on AI literacy, but more importantly, provide a sandbox for employees to go and practice their AI skills, to go and test out some of these new AI tools. With a lot of AI tools being available publicly, how do you provide a safe environment within the organization for employees to actually get their hands dirty and play with AI and get familiar with the tools that's available?
So we looked at it from an industry perspective. What about from a size of organization perspective? AI requires both a lot of investment, knowledge, but also sort of the impact. If it scales fast enough, there might be greater savings or greater efficiencies. As we look at the vast variety in the size of organizations that are in the business world, are there certain, should every, I think I know the answer to this, but does every organization leader need to be thinking about it? And at what point does it make sense to really think about it based on the savings? If you're, leading a 10-person CPA shop, that's going to be a different AI impact than, a large accounting company with hundreds of thousands of employees. How can organizations of a different sizes think about the impact of it? And when should they be thinking about implementing some of the things, balancing both adoption speed and benefits?
I think today they need to be, no matter what size, what organization size you are, you have to be thinking about AI today. AI today is a competitive advantage. If you're not using it in your organization, no matter what the size, you're going to be left behind. It's just like for individual jobs. It's the company that uses AI that's going to succeed more than the company that doesn't use AI at all. So really doesn't depend on the size. What comes down to the size and the industry is really how regulated is the industry, how much how much of the data infrastructure do you have, how much of the foundational infrastructure do you have set up that you can move at a faster speed towards AI. And that's where, if you're a 10-person company and you may not have as much data, you might have to rely on an ecosystem to buy the AI tools off the shelf. Whereas if you're a larger organization and you want to make it more fine-tuned, you can actually train it on your own data. So there are nuances to it, but I don't think any company today has the luxury to wait it out.
I agree, and that's not to cause anxiety or panic amongst our audience, but it's something that you should definitely be thinking about, reading about, playing with the different tools that are out there, and in almost every day there's a new tool, regardless of what function or industry you're in, to sort of help with a different problem. We'd love to get your perspective from your seat at Deloitte. What emerging practices are you seeing among forward-looking companies choosing augmentation over simply automation?
A big thing is, and we touched on some of this, right? Having a company-wide AI literacy training, making sure every employee in the company has access to understand the basics of AI, having a sandbox or a lab environment where where they can go and play with what were the latest AI tool that they've read in the headlines, but in a protected, safe environment without any security leaks or concerns. And then lastly, encouraging, whether it is through having AI hackathons or idea hackathons, really bringing employees together to brainstorm, make them part of the AI journey and create a structure and environment where every employee can contribute to ideas of new ways of using AI within their role or for their organization. That's where the best ideas will come from, right? It is once you put AI in the hands of your employees, they understand that this is a tool and it can help me. That's when you'll hear the new ideas and really help the organization move forward. So I think we are seeing a little bit of that. The last one of really bringing the employee ideas together, whether it's through an AI day or AI brainstorming event. That's another way to not only engage the employees but get them on the AI journey.
No, I think it's great. Because this entire AI conversation that we're having today, and then the big sort of fear-based ones, is about being left behind. There are individuals who again think that AI is going to replace my job. There are entire industries who've done a lot of the data analysis work, and there are entire companies who do work in this regard for other companies. And so fear is natural, right? As business progresses, as humanity progresses, and then we have to evolve. And we've talked about a little bit here already, but as we wrap this conversation, Bina, what are some of the things that leaders can do and think about, reshaping workplace culture, um, to make sure that they've actually foster a sense of inclusion, learning, adaptability. You just talked about bringing others along, through some of the, hackathons and sort of things that we can do. But from a culture perspective, what can leaders really prioritize and continue to reiterate to make sure that they're not that they're also going to be a part of this next wave of journey.
Yeah. Yeah, and here's an interesting, observation that I've had, right? The technology can move at its own speed, right? AI tools are being launched every single day, and there's new headlines every single day, like you mentioned, Jerry. But the adoption of the technology within the organization moves at the pace of the culture of the organization. It is not at all the same speed, right? So it's crucial for leaders to help drive adoption of the technology through some of the things that we've talked about, uh, but also getting them on their journey means having these conversations, having the, encouraging employees to listen to podcasts like these, or, providing a stipend for buying AI related books and reading it, and, having an AI book club. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can start getting AI into the vernacular, into the culture. And the more and the leaders can themselves show how they're using AI in their jobs, I think the more they adopt, employees will be more open to trying it. The fear is absolutely real. And if you don't understand anything about what's going on with AI, it's very hard to accept that technology. And I've personally experienced it where, you can build the most accurate algorithm and nobody uses it. At the end of the day, it's a failed project, right? So it is crucial to invest into driving adoption. There's so many different ways you can do it. And, having an AI day, a simple thing, but bring all your employees together for a virtual conversation on AI, and make it open so that they can ask questions, and, at top of mind questions, whatever the headline might be, have that discussion. Providing those platforms and forums to engage with leaders, is crucial. And it is okay in this scenario for leaders to also share, where they are in their AI journey, how they're using, and, also share that they're not comfortable as well, if they're not, and how they, creating a blog post on, how they are, using AI in their daily lives. I think there's so many different ways, Jerry, that leaders can step up and drive this cultural change. And I think most employees are also keen to get on this journey, to allay those fears.
We talk about leaders' roles and organizational roles in not only shaping this conversation, but also, what role do they have in, the ethics and the accountability of it? Who should own these conversations? And we have discussed at length the fact that AI will touch every aspect of a company, regardless of function and things. And so, these conversations that are happening inside organizations about AI, who owns this? Is it the CTO? Is it a new role, the chief AI officer? Is it the CEO? What's happening now, and where do you see this sort of evolution of ownership at the executive level going on the topic of AI?
There is, it depends on where you are on your AI journey. I think, there are different models. There's no fixed playbook. I speak to a lot of company boards, and, even board members are getting on the AI journey, right? Whether it's using AI for their board meetings, but also engaging with their CEO to understand what the organization itself is doing. So a few models, and you touched on it, right? Driving it as a strategic initiative from the CEO side, having the CTO or the CIO expand their roles to look at AI, or bringing in a brand new transformation kind of role, chief AI officer, right? Like we had chief digital officers when companies wanted to pivot to more digital. I think chief AI officer is a new role that comes in more as a transformation. And this role could sit either reporting directly to the CEO or to the CTO, or sometimes even the chief operating officer. So there are different models here. There is no one size fits all. I think depending on, how far ahead you're in your AI journey, you might want to bring in a new role who's focused on, just AI and looking at it holistically across the organization. Or you might want to start with small projects, use cases within the organization, and bring it under the CIO or CTO. So there are different models to it.
You've given us so much knowledge and direction on what organizations and leaders can do. And as with AI, there might be a little bit of what do I do next? What is the first thing that I can do? And so, as AI evolves, and then we continue to have these conversations, Meena, What is the one thing that leaders should prioritize today to build more human-centered organizations tomorrow?
Proactively think about humans. It's easy to think about the savings and the value impact. It is absolutely crucial, though, to think about the human impact and place humans at the center of it. Proactively thinking about that can drive some of the behavior changes that we talked about today.
Awesome. Beena, it's been such an amazing conversation. I've learned a lot, and I know our audience as well. And the conversations like this will continue to happen. The topics will change, the technology might change, but as you have reiterated to our audience through this conversation, always make sure that you prioritize the humans in your organization, in your ecosystem, and make sure that that is always a priority part of the conversation around AI. Beena, thank you so much for joining us on Tomorrowist, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you for having me.
SHRM.